Turkey is not giving up so quickly on its ambitions in Syria after the fall of the Assad regime in that country and the rise of Abu Muhammad al-Julani. The Turkish army is moving fast to gain influence by recruiting and training for the new Syrian military, effectively setting up a proxy force through which it can control its near border. And meanwhile, the IDF is also preparing for Iranian plans to avenge their humiliating defeat in the 12-day war, either by directly attacking Israel once again or by hitting Israeli or Jewish targets in other countries. But United States President Donald Trump is also getting fed up with Iran and has placed the military option back on the table. For that matter, sources in Iran are already blaming Israel for steering of mysterious explosions and other accidents in the country and an encounter between the United States and Iranian naval forces off the coast of Oman that ended badly. In Gaza, the Hamas leadership announced that they have given an answer to the proposal made in the negotiations in Doha, Qatar. But their own position inside the Gaza Strip is crumbling as basic food items are becoming unaffordable for the residents of Gaza, while a video has surfaced of Hamas operatives helping themselves to the best of what's supposed to be for everybody. And meanwhile, on the northern parts of the border, Hezbollah refuses to disarm despite American pressure. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host, Yair Pinto, bringing you all the truth about what's happening in Israel. After Hamas delivered a disappointing answer to the mediators, the terror organization officially announced that it had submitted its response to the proposal for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip that would include the release of the remaining Israeli hostages. An Israeli source said that we are examining the answer. There is significant improvement, but Hamas is still trying to control the deal. In a related stories, testimonies have been coming in about enormous prices of various products in the Gaza Strip, including tomatoes, onions, and sugar. Adding to this, Palestinian and Israeli sources said that while Gaza residents live in ruins, the wives of the Sinwar brothers, the leaders of Hamas, crossed the border with their children and have fled to Turkey. The sources confirmed that this required high coordination and a sum of money that the average Gazan person does not have. Anger at the rising misery in the Gaza Strip while Hamas elites just pick up and go has risen in recent days. This is compounded by a recent video showing terrorist leaders having a feast in a tunnel while ordinary Gazans struggle to find enough to eat. The IDF spokesperson in Arabic gave some commentary on the video, telling the residents of Gaza they are thieves who take care of themselves at your expense. Circling back to the negotiations, we must ask what are the implications of the IDF's withdrawal and other demands that Hamas is now making. The negotiations drag on as the hostages and their families continue to suffer. We'll bring you a closer look into that situation. And in the northern arena, Hezbollah is declaring that they will not disarm and they're ready for a confrontation with the Lebanese National Army if they try to force this issue. And next door in Syria, a new threat is emerging after the al-Julani regime made a request to Turkey for training and other assistance in building up its armed forces. The Turks have confirmed that they are considering this request. And meanwhile, the IDF has reopened a field hospital in southern Syria. And further afield, in Iran, a mysterious wave of explosions, fires, and other accidents have brought chaos to cities all over the country in the last 2 weeks. And according to a report in the New York Times, some officials suspect that these are not the results of accidents, but rather it is a deliberate campaign of sabotage carried out by Israeli agents. And in related news, the Iranian and the United States navies had an encounter at the sea. This week, coming into visual range off the coast of Oman. According to reports, the Iranian Navy warned the American destroyer that it was in danger of violating Iranian waters and it needed to change its course. So we'll have some more details about this incident, which is sure to cause President Trump to be even more fed up with Iran. And this week, he made an explicit statement that if necessary, we will bomb nuclear sites again. And this comes even as European countries are also losing patience with Tehran, and Israel is on alert for a possible terrorist attack worldwide as Iran looks for ways to avenge its humiliating defeat in the 12-day war. And back in Israel, after 5 months, the IDF, the Shin Bet, and the border police arrested the terrorists behind the unsuccessful attempt to blow up 5 buses in Bat Yam, a city in Israel. A mistake in setting the timing of the charges prevented a severe disaster, but that didn't mean that Israel could just let it go. The terrorists fled to Nablus and eluded capture for a time until he was picked up in the last 24 hours and immediately told the Shin Bet everything that he knew. It's been a very busy week and we have a lot to talk about today. So let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto and this is your Boots on the Ground live report bringing you all the truth about what's happening in Israel on day 658 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are operating under the control of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. A moment before we begin, I want to call on you to continue help us spread the truth. Share our content so that together, the truth of what's happening in Israel will reach as many people as possible. Guys, leave a like, leave a comment, and the most important thing that you can do is hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. We begin today's report with a look at the recent activities of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. The Lebanese television channel El Mayadin reported on Wednesday that aircrafts of the Iranian Navy prevented an American destroyer from approaching the territorial waters under Iran's control in the Sea of Oman in the Persian Gulf. The report said a helicopter of the Iranian Navy flew over the American destroyer, warned it, and asked it to move away. The American destroyer threatened to strike the helicopter, but the Iranian pilot continued his mission and repeated his warning to move away from the Iranian waters. The channel noted that in response to the repeated threat from the American destroyer, the Army's air defense system intervened and issued a firm announcement confirming that the naval helicopter was under the full protection of the air defense and that the American ship must change its course southward and move away from waters under Iran's control. So a Pentagon statement denied the Iranian report, essentially saying that nothing unusual had happened and that the Iranians are trying to make it sound really dramatic, but it actually wasn't. And in a related story, the New York Times reported this week that official sources in Iran, including a member of the Revolutionary Guards, believe that Israel may be involved in the series of explosions and fires occurring in the country over the last 2 weeks. This mysterious waves of accidents has hit cities all over Iran in various locations, including residential apartment complexes, oil refineries, near an airport, and even at a shoe factory. Publicly, the authorities in Iran present the incidents as a series of unhappy coincidences or as events caused by outdated infrastructure, gas leaks, garbage fires, and more. In an attempt to calm the population that is still recovering from the strikes by Israel and the United States, the Iranians are calling these mistakes. It's important to point out that some of these fires might indeed be accidents caused by old, worn-out infrastructure, like what happens anywhere else where old, worn-out infrastructure breaks. However, as mentioned, some of the sources in the country don't think so. They believe that at least some of these incidents are the result of deliberate sabotage, possibly by Israeli agents. A European source familiar with the issue told the newspaper that he believes these are intentional attacks as part of psychological warfare and attempts to eliminate various targets. The report states that despite the suspicions, Iranian officials have not been able to present evidence for these claims. Candidly, I don't blame the Iranian officials for being suspicious of Israel, but I also think that they should ask themselves why so many of their own citizens might be willing to cooperate with efforts by external enemies to sabotage their regime. It might have something to do with the way that these Iranian citizens are being treated by the regime. And speaking of the regime, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian made a somewhat incredible admission this week, saying that Israel inflicted powerful blows on Iran. This is a change in the tone from the previous statements by this regime that Iran defeated Israel in the 12-day war and was on the verge of utterly destroying the Jewish state until the Americans rescued us at the last minute. Pezeshkian made the admission in the midst of an interview this week with the Qatari channel Al Jazeera, and he also declared that in Iran, we absolutely refuse to possess nuclear weapons. This is our political, religious, human, and strategic position. And regarding the ceasefire with Israel, the president said that this country is not interested in war, but at the same time does not trust that the ceasefire with Israel and with the United States of America is final and is ready to defend Iran with whatever is needed. However, the IDF is preparing for the possibility that the IRGC might not be interested in trying to strike deep in Israel, but rather far outside of it. IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir convened the General Staff Forum this week against the background of concern over the possibility that the IRGC will target Israeli embassies and Jewish community centers around the world as they have done in the past. However, Defense Minister Katz warned that the IDF is prepared to renew the campaign against Iran, and he further emphasized the need to preserve the air superiority created following Operation Rising Lion, while formulating an enforcement plan going forward to ensure that Iran does not rebuild its nuclear project or its missile array. It is also important to point out that in the defense establishment, it is assessed that the Iranians, who have begun an in-depth inquiry into the questions that arose during the campaign, will seek significant revenge against Israel in the country or outside of Israel's borders. Such an action would place the IDF in a dilemma over a military response against the regime, because the option of escalation to a full war in response to acts of terrorism abroad might be politically problematic for Israel. Therefore, Zamir said that the IDF will transition to a concept of defense through offense and multi-arena preparedness. The defense concept will no longer rely on borderlines, but on proactive offensive actions and forward security zones in enemy territories. The Chief of Staff also updated the IDF's senior command that, in his view, all the arenas influence one another, from Iran through Lebanon, Syria, the Gaza Strip, etc. And therefore, a broad and comprehensive view of all arenas is required. Thus, the IDF must move to strategic management that constantly examines the areas altogether. And that's what Israel is doing to deal with the challenges that are posed by Iran. Now, what are other countries doing about it? It's a good question. So to start with, the United States President Donald Trump declared this week that the United States has decided to stop its attempts to persuade Iran to enter talks regarding its nuclear program. In recent private conversations, which were leaked to the media and quoted by the Jerusalem Post newspaper, Trump said that if Tehran wants to negotiate, they are welcomed, but we are not going to try and persuade them or to beg them. These statements come after prolonged efforts by the Trump administration to convince Tehran to enter negotiations with the United States, emphasizing that any future agreement must prevent Iran from fully enriching uranium. However, the El Arabiya media portal reported this week that Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghaei said that Iran currently has no plans to hold talks with the United States ahead of a new round of negotiations with the 3 European countries scheduled to take place in Istanbul on Friday at the deputy minister's level. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also reiterated his country's position in an interview with Fox News, saying, "We cannot give up our right to enrich uranium." In response, the United States President said on Truth Social, "If necessary, we will bomb nuclear sites again." And once again, amidst all of this rhetoric, a meeting is planned for Friday in Istanbul between Iran's deputy foreign minister and his counterparts from Britain, France, and Germany. The European countries have warned Iran that if no new nuclear agreement is reached by August, the United Nations Security Council will activate the snapback mechanism, which will lead to the reimposition of severe sanctions on Iran. Iranian officials have complained to the United Nations that there is no legal or moral basis for taking this action, but it's unclear if anyone has any sympathy for them. For that matter, in a rare interview published this week on the opposition media outlet Iran International, analyst Saeed Layalaz revealed worrying details from the Iranian perspective about security failures that occurred during the 12-day war that took place last month. He said, amongst other things, that we saw that 120 to 150 rocket launchers exploded the moment they were activated, and the entire air defense systems of Iran was breached. Layalaz originally disclosed this information in an interview with the site Iqtisad Online, which is subject to regime censorship. Michael Pregent, an independent analyst and a former American intelligence officer, responded to the disclosure by telling Iran International that when someone is saying that it's between 120 and 150 launchers that were destroyed, that's a huge number, but the real number could be significantly higher than that. However, Layalaz wasn't finished. He declared that, "I no longer trust any military or security person, whether from the Revolutionary Guards, from the Ministry of Intelligence, or from the army, unless proven otherwise." In terms of security, it can easily be said that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been brought to its knees. And on that subject, it is important to point out that during the 12-day war, Israel carried out targeted attacks in which several senior commanders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards were eliminated. This included the chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, Muhammad Bagheri, the commander of the Revolutionary Guards, Hussein Salami, the commander of the airspace, the force of the airspace of Iran, Amir Ali Hajizadeh, and the deputy commander of the Revolutionary Guards, Mehdi Rabbani. And according to the Iranian government spokesman, there were 1,062 fatalities in Iran during the war, of whom 786 were military personnel and 276 civilians. As was stated before, these are the numbers that the regime is admitting to, but the real numbers could be much higher than that. Back to Layalaz, he also expressed criticism of Iran's foreign policy and called on the government to first negotiate with its people, saying, during the 12-day war, despite being disappointed with the ruling system, the Iranian people quietly stood up to defend the territorial integrity of the country. This means that there is still room for reconciliation between the Iranian people and the Islamic Republic. Guys, do you think that's true? Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know, do you think that the Iranian people and the Iranian government still has time for reconciliation? And guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting on every development with Iran. And now, let's move on to developments with Turkey on the Syrian soil. But first, keep spreading the truth, share, follow us, leave a like, and most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and help us reach more people with boots on the ground. Now, I want to bring it back to Israel for just a moment and talk about some of the issues that we are dealing with on the home front, the people of Israel. Nearly 2 years into this war, many Israelis are still juggling IDF reserve duty while trying to get back to work and handle their day-to-day lives. It's not easy because the body is tired, the mind is overloaded with multiple stuff, and the pressure doesn't stop when the uniform comes off. I've been there, coming home from reserves, trying to be present for my family, catching up at work, while still feeling like I'm in a survival mode. It takes a lot of strength, energy, and faith to push through. And guys, during my military service, I took 2 things with me to the Gaza Strip. Some socks, stuff that you need, of course my uniform, and also I took Vinya. Vinya is an Israeli supplement made from red grape cells that helps improve the blood flow through your heart, your brain, and your muscles. For me, that meant better focus, more energy, and fewer days of foggy, burnt-out feeling. So I started using it during my reserve service in this war, and I'm also using it today. There's also a way to take it as a coffee version or a tea version, but either way, it works. So if you want to try it for yourself, go to vinyatbnisrael.com or call 800-638-1944. Again, that's vinyatbnisrael.com or call 800-638-1944 and give it a try for yourself. Now back to the news, and we're switching our focus to the northern arena. One day after revealing a very long range of particularly powerful ballistic missiles on Wednesday, the Turkish Ministry of Defense revealed its intentions regarding the new Syrian army under the rule of interim President Abu Muhammad al-Julani. The ministry said today that al-Julani's government officially requested assistance from Ankara to strengthen its military defensive capabilities, as well as in the fight against terrorist organizations and ISIS in particular. This comes amidst very significant developments in the Syrian arena in recent days, following heavy fighting that took place in Saweda government in the south of the country between Druze residents and the Bedouin tribes. After an agreement was reached with American intervention last week after the battles, the Syrian army and the regime's internal security forces began to reduce their presence in the area as part of the ceasefire between the leadership of the Druze community and the regime. As has been widely reported, with the outbreak of the fighting in the city, the Syrian army sent significant reinforcements to the area, including tanks and other heavy weapons. These forces operated against local Druze militias, and according to the estimates in the field, about 1,000 soldiers participated in the fighting, coming from several brigades and several divisions. These developments are very alarming for Israel, as they are a violation of previous agreements that would be no deployment of regime forces with heavy weapons south of Damascus. But that's not the only thing that's occurred lately in the northern arena that has Israel concerned. As mentioned, this week, Turkey revealed in its newest and strongest weapon, a ballistic missile built by Roketsan called Typhoon. So according to various reports, the missile is capable of reaching a range of 500 to 800 kilometers, and later, in its development, the maximum range will reach about 1,000 kilometers. Its length ranges between 6.5 and 10 meters, and its weight ranges between 2,300 and 7,200 kilograms. The missile was designed for high accuracy and is capable of striking targets with a deviation of about 5 meters, including naval vessels. Additionally, yesterday, the Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan spoke sharply against Israel and its actions in Syria, saying that Ankara sees any attempt to divide Syria as a threat and will consider intervening. Netanyahu's interest is to drag the Middle East into chaos, and we, the countries of the region, will not allow this. Israel pursues a policy that weakens the region and leaves it in a state of chaos. This is according to the Turkish statement. This appears to be an escalation in the tone from Ankara, and it is not the first time that we have heard statements approaching a real threat in level, but it seems they are also careful not to cross the red lines. However, Turkey maintains a significant military presence in northern Syria, and in recent months there have been also attempts by the Turks to establish new bases in the center and in the south of the country as well. And furthermore, Ankara's support for the Syrian rebels, which overthrew the Assad regime last December, granted deep influence over the new regime and a very attentive ear in Damascus. However, it's not all bad news. After a particularly tense period in relations between Israel and Syria, and after the cessation of medical activity in that area, the IDF is reopening the Forward Medical Center in southern Syria. This is being done as part of a broader effort to stabilize the area and provide a humanitarian response to the local population, with an emphasis on the Jews in the south of the country. Division 210 forces and the Medical Corps announced on Wednesday that they had successfully reopened the mobile forward medical facility in the area of the village of Hajar. For patients from the Syrian population, mainly from the Druze community in the south of the country, and services are offered on-site in routine medicine, trauma care, initial triage, and medical evacuation if necessary. And alongside the opening of the center, IDF forces continue to operate in southern Syria and near the border fence with Israel. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development in the northern arena. And as always, we invite you to be part of the team, support the truths, and invest in it. We need you in order to reach more people with what's happening in Israel. This is a multi-front war, and sadly, we are losing the front of sharing the truth of what's happening in Israel. So guys, please hit that subscribe button if you like this video and if you want more people to know what's happening in Israel. Now, we're keeping our focus on the northern arena for a little bit longer because Hezbollah is still refusing to hand over its weapons to the Lebanese National Army, and is also saying that they are ready to confront the army if they try to force this issue. Specifically, sources told the El Arabiya media portal that Hezbollah has informed the parliament speaker, Nabih Berri, that it will never hand over its weapons even if Israel fully withdraws from Lebanese territory, and it is ready for a confrontation if the Lebanese state desires. And according to the sources, Lebanese leaders are furious over Hezbollah's insistence and describe it as a wasted opportunity to improve Lebanon's image and relations with the rest of the countries in this region and beyond. And Lebanese President Joseph Aoun insisted this week that implementing the decision to concentrate weapons in the hands of the state constitutes an irreversible decision which will preserve Lebanon's unity and prevent any harm to the civil peace. And following this, the Speaker of the Parliament in Lebanon, Nabih Berri, clarified to the American envoy Tom Barak that he cannot guarantee that Hezbollah's weapons will remain only north of the Litani River by the end of the year, even if Israel withdraws from southern Lebanon. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development in Lebanon. So give a click to the subscribe button so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time. Now, let's switch our focus to the Gaza Strip, where the intensified fighting by the IDF continues. The IDF spokesperson in Arabic, Lieutenant Colonel Avichai Aderi, published footage on Wednesday that he said reveals the lifestyle of Hamas terrorists in tunnels underground during the war. According to Aderi, while senior Hamas members falsely accuse Israel of starvation, the videos reveal its terrorists boasting about their meals in the tunnels. It should be emphasized that the food in the videos do not enter as part of the transfer of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. The disconnect of Hamas terrorists from the suffering of the residents is once again revealed in its ugliest. The same organization that markets lies to the world about starvation is entertained by the sights of destruction that it brought upon its own people, the Gaza people. In a direct appeal to the ordinary people in the Gaza Strip, she said, "Residents of Gaza, this is the truth. These terrorists are not heroes. They are thieves who care only for themselves at your expense and hide in tunnels for fear of the consequences of their actions." In the video attached by Aderi to his announcement, the terrorists boast about the food that they have, which includes fruits, rice, and meat, and address a person named Abu Khaled, who appears to be the one that is filming this video. During the clip, one terrorist tells the cameraman, "You missed it. I ate 5 bowls of rice today." This, while the residents of Gaza above the ground stand in huge lines for a plate of food. IDF spokesperson's exposure comes amidst a wave of criticism worldwide against Israel that accusations of starvation of Gaza residents alongside claims of deliberate shooting at civilians coming to receive the humanitarian aid at the distribution centers. The day before yesterday, a joint statement by more than 20 Western countries, including Britain and France, was published calling for an immediate end to the war in Gaza. However, while Gaza residents live under the ruins, skipping between makeshift shelters and bread lines, the families of senior Hamas officials are no longer in the Gaza Strip. They fled to other places. And according to local sources in Gaza, the Hamas leadership took care to smuggle their families out long before the war began. The picture that emerges, even if not officially verified, is very disturbing to the Gazan public. The IDF spokesperson published earlier this year rare footage in which Samar Abu Zamar, the widow of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, is seen hurrying into one of Hamas's tunnels with her children. At first, it was assumed that she went underground, but according to sources in Gaza, she left the Gaza Strip entirely. A Gazan source told the Israeli news portal Ynet, "She's not here anymore. She is in Turkey with the children." She crossed the Rafah crossing with a forged passport of another woman from Gaza. This required logistical assistance, coordination at a high level, and a lot of money that an average Gazan resident just does not have. And according to that source, Samar remarried in Turkey a few months after her husband, Yahya Sinwar, died. The mediator between the couple was none other than Fathi Hamad, a senior official in Hamas's political bureau. Hamad's name was previously linked to international contacts and assistance in smuggling organization members and their families. After the elimination of Yahya's brother, Muhammad Sinwar, several months later, public attention turned to his wife, Najwa, for whom there has been no documentation in recent months. That might be because, according to the same source, she too left the Gaza Strip with her children. There are many speculations about the escape destination, but most likely she is also in Turkey. Israeli security officials confirmed that both women left through the Rafah border crossing before their husbands were eliminated in Gaza. In any case, this is a covert move with no public trace, but the public in Gaza feels it. Amongst all the stories of escapees, forgeries, and international coordination, one unusual figure appears, Khaled, the wife of Muhammad Def. In a video published on social media networks, Khaled is seen in a simple house together with their 3 children. Not a tunnel, not a bunker, and not a luxury home. With rare composure, she is seen in the video declaring, "In our house, there are 4 mattresses and a mat. That's how it was before the war and after it. I'm not running away. I am here with my people." Some claim this is a move intended to break the image of the mass escape of the Hamas leadership. Others, mainly from within, say at least one stayed with us. However, in the streets of Gaza, the feelings are turning into open rage, as a young Gazan can be heard saying in a recent video that the Hamas leaders sent their children to study in Turkey and Qatar, and our children to the graves. What is the difference between them and a corrupt ruler in a dark Arab country? They only care about themselves. And according to sources familiar with what is happening, Hamas has long established an organized smuggling mechanism for the families of its senior officials that includes forged passports, fictitious medical documents, logistical escort, and assistance from embassies of supportive countries around this region. But now, things are beginning to change as more and more residents in Gaza are asking themselves, did we bear the burden for the sake of the resistance, or only so that the Hamas leadership could live in five-star hotels in Doha and in Istanbul? What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to spread the truth, so share and follow us, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. And now, we're keeping our focus on the Gaza Strip, but switching to the negotiations over the return of our hostages and bringing this terrible war to an end. So, overnight, between Wednesday and Thursday, Hamas delivered the mediators its response to the proposal for a hostage deal and a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, and Israeli sources that are familiar with the details confirmed that the answer was delivered and that in Israel they are examining it. Amidst this background, the Minister of Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer, will soon meet on the island of Sardinia in Italy with Steve Witkoff, the United States Special Envoy to the Middle East, and with a senior Qatari official. An Israeli source that is familiar with the details said that Hamas's latest answer showed improvement compared to the answer that was rejected by the mediators, and according to him, it can be a basis for negotiations. It is important to point out that Hamas's answer was delivered after the mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and the United States, as well as elements in Israel, were disappointed with Hamas's responses to the latest Israeli proposal for a ceasefire and a hostage release deal. They defined it as simply not sufficient. And a political source said this week that in Cairo and Doha, they rejected the terrorist organization's answers, which wasn't even delivered to Israel, and told them, come back to us with a more relevant answer. We are waiting. And a source familiar with the details added that Qatar and Egypt demanded from Hamas a round of improvements so that it would be possible to continue the negotiations. If their updated answer improves significantly, it will be possible to move forward. And senior intelligence officials in Israel were updated on the details of these answers that were delivered the day before yesterday to the mediators and passed the main points onto the military intelligence and to the political echelon. The fear in Hamas is that the ceasefire will not become a permanent arrangement and that Israel will not withdraw from the entire Gaza Strip as the terrorist organization demands. In Jerusalem, they reiterate no such commitment was given by Israel, and the existence of American guarantees has not been approved publicly. And meanwhile, due to the distrust and the internal division within Hamas's leadership, there are elements in the terrorist organization who believe that the limited agreement taking shape would be treated as the last agreement. And accordingly, they demand the release of the maximum number of security prisoners from Israeli jails, including some very dangerous people who they know that Israel will not want to release. For Hamas, these are national heroes, whose release Yahya Sinwar, the former leader, swore to achieve, and on whom he hung, amongst other things, the reasons for launching the October 7th attack. With that in mind, Dermer, who closely followed the negotiations, said yesterday in close conversations that he's less optimistic now than he was yesterday regarding the deal for the release of the hostages. However, he noted that despite the disappointment with the answer that was received, everything is very dynamic and can change within hours. But what does it mean that the IDF has to withdraw? Everyone in Israel is talking about Israel returning to the borders of March 2. What does that mean? If Israel agrees to withdraw to the March 2 lines within the framework of Hamas's demands in the talks for a hostage deal, the practical meaning of the move is the departure of IDF forces from the main corridors bisecting the Gaza Strip, which have been established in recent months. This concerns 12 kilometers of the Morag corridor stretching between the borderline of Kisufin in Israel and the sea, thereby creating a barrier between Rafah and Khan Yunis, the Palestinian cities in Gaza, and about 10 kilometers of the newer corridor, Magen Oz, which divides between East and West Khan Yunis and is supposed to allow more efficient and effective attacks on Hamas strongholds should this become a necessity. This is a serious issue, as withdrawing from these corridors would mean the IDF giving up a very important strategic advantage that has been won through great efforts and massive sacrifices. Even if the compromise is leaving American security contractors and Egyptian policemen in place instead of IDF soldiers, the move could end in failure for Israel, like the previous experiment in withdrawing from the Netzarim corridor in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip as part of the last phase of the hostage release in January. And once again, such a withdrawal would squander many of the IDF's achievements that were obtained at heavy costs in the only city in the Gaza Strip on which the siege was imposed, which is Rafah, as a withdrawal from the Morag corridor would allow hundreds of thousands of Gazans to return and rebuild Rafah without inspection at the IDF checkpoints. This would inevitably include Hamas terrorists who will try to recover the local Hamas brigade in Rafah, though most of the city's terror infrastructure, such as tunnels, were damaged or destroyed mainly in recent months. It is not that the IDF would be unable to take control of these corridors again, but Hamas would have the opportunity to set up booby traps and other problems that would make this process much more difficult and much more costly. A withdrawal to the March 2nd lines is dramatic also regarding the security zone that the IDF is still establishing in the buffer area on the Gaza side of the border and also in the northern Netzarim corridor. This is a very complicated issue. What do you guys think that Israel should do regarding withdrawing from the Gaza Strip? I want to hear what you have to say about this. Let me know. With the collapse of the ceasefire at the beginning of the year, the army returned to occupy positions on the corridor south of Gaza City, such as on the road Tansher, to stop the seepage of thousands of Hamas terrorists who returned with another 500,000 Palestinians to the largest city in the Gaza Strip. A full opening of the Netzarim corridor will further help Hamas militarily in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. In addition, the new buffer area that is supposed to prevent or reduce the next October 7 will be harmed if the terrorist organization's demands are met. In recent months, the IDF bit into many new land sanctions that it conquered in Gaza, a kilometer or two on the Gazan side of the border, mainly in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, and at heavy costs of dozens of fallen and wounded soldiers, many in Jabalia and in the town of Bet Hanun, which overlook communities like the Israeli city of Sderot, Nefalsim, and Alumim. A withdrawal, even a partial one, from these areas will harm the IDF's ability to protect the Gaza envelope and will delay or reduce the establishment of the planned outposts for this proposal. Guys, keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And now, let's move to Judea and Samaria. After months of a manhunt, on Wednesday evening, the Israeli Shin Bet and the IDF arrested the terrorist Abdel El-Karim Zanbar, who was behind the planning and the execution of a major terrorist attack in central Israel. The attempt to blow up 5 buses was prevented because of a mistake in setting the timer clock of the explosive devices wrong, which caused them to explode at 9 at night instead of 9 in the morning. This mistake by the terrorist saved many innocent lives, but he managed to escape and has been hiding in Nablus, a Palestinian city, since then. But on Wednesday evening, the security forces caught up to him after he was wounded by the preemptive detonation of some explosives that he himself was handling with. So, unable to flee because of his wounds, he was captured and immediately turned over to the Shin Bet for interrogation. Several other explosive devices apparently were meant to be used in future terrorist attacks against Israel were also found and demolished together in this operation. The IDF spokespersons unit stated that the arrest marks a significant operation and an intelligence achievement after a prolonged period of intense intelligence activity by the IDF and the Shin Bet, which included a series of operations on the ground built and led to the terrorist arrests. So the IDF, the Shin Bet, and the border police will continue to act at all times and in every place in order to safeguard the security and the people of Israel as much as possible. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting on every front that Israel has, and sadly, Israel has multiple fronts. This was just Judea and Samaria, but we have Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Yemen, Iran, Iraq, and hopefully that's enough for now. It's a lot of fronts. But we understand that this is a spiritual war. And in order to fight a spiritual war, we need to unite in prayer. And that's how we're going to win this war, by praying. So guys, I ask all of you, wherever you're coming from, to pray. Ask God to lead you how to pray for the situation, and then make it personal. Pray for a hostage that is kept in the Gaza Strip. Pray for an IDF soldier that is struggling, that his family misses him. Pray for wisdom to our leaders. Pray for the innocent people that are affected by these terrorists. A Druze family in Syria, a Yemeni family that is being taken advantage of by the terrorist organization, the Houthis. Let's pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and together we will win this war.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN.